Beneath a sky roiling with steel-gray clouds, the Alaskan wilderness lay cloaked in a sudden, merciless blizzard. Snow whipped through the air like shards of glass, driven by a biting wind that seemed to slice through even the thickest layers of clothing. Visibility was reduced to mere feet, the landscape swallowed by an unrelenting whiteout. In the heart of this frozen tempest, Navy SEAL Jake Mallory struggled to keep his footing, his breath frosted in the frigid air as he fought against the storm's fury. Before we dive into this incredible story, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me, have you ever faced a situation where your survival depended on a partner? Where did it happen? Beside him, Rex, a powerful Belgian Malinois with a sleek tan coat dampened by snow, moved with practiced precision. The dog's ears were pinned back, eyes sharp and alert despite the swirling chaos around them. Jake's gloved hand rested briefly on Rex's neck, drawing strength from the familiar warmth beneath his fingertips. This bond, forged through years of training and combat, was their greatest asset now. They had been on a routine reconnaissance mission deep in the Alaskan backcountry when the blizzard erupted without warning. What had begun as a clear day had deteriorated rapidly, the temperature plummeting as the weather turned hostile. Now, trapped in this frozen wasteland, every step was a battle against nature itself. Jake's breath came in ragged puffs as he scanned the shifting terrain, searching for any sign of shelter or safe route forward. His dark eyes, sharp and calculating, betrayed none of the fear gnawing at the edges of his mind. He was a man trained to endure the impossible, to survive where others would falter. But even he could not deny the brutal challenge the storm presented. The wind howled through the skeletal trees, bending them like fragile twigs. Snowdrifts rose in unnatural shapes, concealing treacherous drops and ice-covered rocks. The ground beneath Jake's feet was a treacherous patchwork of frozen mud and slick ice. Each misstep a potential disaster. Rex moved close, his body a steady presence in the swirling chaos. Minutes stretched into hours as they pressed onward, the storm showing no sign of relenting. Jake's muscles ached beneath the weight of his gear, his face stinging from the biting cold despite the layers of protection. Each inhalation was a sharp reminder of the freezing air invading his lungs. He knew hypothermia was a very real threat, one that could claim them both if they faltered. The landscape, once familiar from maps and satellite images, had transformed into an alien world of blinding white and howling wind. Trees disappeared into the mist, their trunks mere shadows in the swirling snow. Jake's compass needle spun erratically, the storm interfering with its delicate mechanisms. He cursed under his breath, knowing that navigation would become a deadly gamble. Rex suddenly stopped, his nose twitching as he caught an unfamiliar scent. The dog's body tensed, muscles coiled like a spring, ready to leap. Jake squinted through the snow, trying to pierce the blizzard's veil. But there was nothing, only the endless expanse of white. The bond between the SEAL and his canine was palpable, a silent communication that needed no words. Rex's instincts were honed to detect danger and opportunity alike, and Jake trusted them implicitly. Together, they were a unit forged by discipline and adversity, each relying on the other for survival. As the storm's fury intensified, Jake's thoughts flickered to their predicament. Their mission had been to gather intelligence on suspected enemy activity near the border, a task that required stealth and precision. Now, survival overshadowed all other concerns. They were isolated, cut off from communication, and at the mercy of the elements. The howling wind drowned out all other sounds. Yet Jake was acutely aware of the subtle shifts. The crunch of snow beneath his boots, Rex's steady panting, the distant groan of ice shifting. Every sensory detail was amplified by the starkness of their environment. Suddenly, a sharp gust knocked Jake off balance, sending him sprawling onto the icy ground. Pain flared in his shoulder as he hit the frozen earth, but he forced himself up, swallowing a grimace. Rex was immediately at his side, nudging him with a cold, wet nose, offering reassurance without hesitation. They pressed on, driven by necessity and an unyielding will to survive. Each step forward was a triumph over the storm's relentless assault. The blizzard showed no mercy, and time was their enemy. In the distance, a faint silhouette emerged, an aged, weather-beaten cabin nestled against a stand of frost-laden pines. Jake's heart quickened. Shelter meant a chance to regroup, to stave off the creeping frostbite that threatened to claim their fingers and toes. He urged Rex forward, their pace quickening despite the exhaustion pulling at their limbs. Reaching the cabin's battered door, Jake fumbled with his frozen fingers, finally managing to pry it open. Inside, the air was stale, but offered refuge from the storm's wrath. The cabin was sparse, an empty hearth, a rough-hewn table, and a few weathered chairs, but it was sanctuary. Jake lit a small portable stove, the flickering flame a beacon in the oppressive gloom. He peeled off his gloves, assessing his numb hands for signs of frostbite. Rex settled beside him, his body radiating warmth that seeped into Jake's chilled bones. Outside, the blizzard raged on, an unyielding tempest that would not be tamed. Inside, a fragile pocket of calm offered a brief reprieve. Jake allowed himself a moment to breathe, to steel his resolve for the trials yet to come. He knew this was only the beginning. The storm was a formidable adversary, but so were they. A seal and his canine, bound by loyalty and trained to overcome the impossible. Together, they would face the frozen wilderness and fight for survival against the relentless Alaskan blizzard. The cabin's dim interior cast long shadows as Jake Mallory settled beside the flickering stove. The meager warmth, a fragile barrier against the brutal Alaskan cold outside. He pulled off layers of soaked clothing, revealing the harsh reality of the environment he had ventured into. A world where even the strongest could be undone by nature's unforgiving hand. The storm outside continued its relentless assault, a white tempest that swallowed the wilderness whole. But inside, Jake's mind shifted to the landscape beyond the cabin walls and the man who had trained for this very battleground. Alaska was a land of extremes, its reputation for merciless cold and isolation well earned. The towering spruce and birch trees, their branches weighed down by heavy snow, stood like silent sentinels guarding an ancient and treacherous wilderness. The terrain was a jagged labyrinth of frozen rivers, icy cliffs, and dense forests that seemed to stretch into infinity. Few dared to traverse it without expert knowledge, and fewer still could endure its wrath for long. Jake's years as a Navy SEAL had taken him across the globe, but the Alaskan backcountry posed a challenge unlike any other. Here, survival demanded more than just combat skills. It required an intimate understanding of the land, a respect for its power, and an unbreakable bond with one's partner. He glanced down at Rex, the Belgian Malinois who lay curled at his feet, eyes half closed but alert even in rest. Rex was no ordinary dog. From the moment Jake had first met him at the Military Working Dog Training Center, the connection had been immediate. The dog's keen intellect, razor-sharp instincts, and unwavering loyalty made him an indispensable teammate. Together, they had navigated hostile environments, neutralized threats, and saved lives. But the Alaskan wilderness demanded more. The ability to detect dangers hidden beneath the snow, to track scents buried in freezing winds, to endure exhaustion and pain without faltering. Jake's fingers traced the worn patch on his sleeve, a symbol of his SEAL training and the countless missions that had shaped him. The rigorous regimen had forged him into a warrior conditioned to face extreme adversity. He remembered the long hours of physical conditioning, the mental drills designed to break and rebuild him, the teamwork exercises that demanded absolute trust. Now, those lessons were being tested against nature itself. Outside, the blizzard's howl was a constant reminder of their precarious position. The storm masked sounds, blurred vision, and drained energy. It was a silent predator, capable of erasing even the most skilled and prepared. Jake knew that every moment spent exposed to the cold chipped away at their endurance, and that finding shelter was only the first step in a fight for survival. He studied the cabin's sparse interior. A rough wooden table scarred by years of use, a cracked window frosted over with ice, and a small stash of firewood in the corner. It wasn't much, but it was enough to buy them time. Time to assess their situation, to plan their next move, and to conserve their strength. Jake reached into his pack, pulling out a compact survival kit. He checked the contents with practiced efficiency: a multi-tool, emergency rations, a first aid kit, and a compact GPS device. The GPS had lost signal in the storm, but the device's presence was a reminder of the technological edge they once held over the wilderness. Now, that edge was dulled by nature's overwhelming force. He turned his attention to Rex, who lifted his head and gave a low whine before nudging Jake's hand with his nose. The dog's breath was warm against Jake's skin, a small comfort amid the biting cold. Jake ran his fingers through Rex's fur, feeling the steady rhythm of his companion's heartbeat. This bond was more than training. It was survival. Jake's mind drifted to the countless hours they had spent preparing for moments like this. The drills in simulated harsh environments, the training in navigation and survival skills, and the countless missions that had tested their limits. Every challenge had been a building block, a layer of resilience that now formed the foundation of their will to live. He thought about the isolation of the Alaskan wilderness, a place where help often seemed impossibly distant. Rescue teams took hours, sometimes days, to reach stranded individuals, and the landscape itself was a formidable opponent. Avalanches, hidden crevasses, and the ever-present risk of hypothermia made every decision critical. Jake pulled out a weathered map, the edges frayed from use, and spread it across the table. The terrain was marked with rivers, mountain ridges, and sparse settlements, dots of civilization in an otherwise vast and empty expanse. He traced their last known route with a gloved finger, trying to chart a path toward safety. Rex shifted, lifting his nose to the cracked window, catching scents carried on the wind despite the storm's fury. His ears twitched, and Jake knew the dog was processing information invisible to human senses. The canine's ability to detect subtle changes in the environment, whether the presence of wildlife, the approach of danger, or the faintest trace of human activity, was invaluable. The partnership between Jake and Rex was a testament to the extraordinary capabilities of military working dogs. Rex was trained not only to obey commands, but to think independently, to act decisively in moments of crisis. This autonomy was critical in situations where communication was limited or impossible. Jake's thoughts turned to the physical toll the cold had taken. Numbness crept into his fingers and toes despite the layers of insulated gear. Frostbite was a real threat, and the longer they remained exposed, the more precarious their condition became. Every movement required effort. Every breath felt like a battle against the icy air invading his lungs. Yet, beneath the exhaustion and pain was a fierce determination. Jake's military training had instilled a mindset of endurance and adaptability. He knew that panic was the enemy. Clarity and calm were their greatest allies. The storm was a test, not just of physical strength, but of mental fortitude. As night began to fall, The dim light outside the cabin waned, swallowed by the storm's thick curtain. Jake checked his watch, noting the time with a soldier's precision. Darkness in the wilderness was absolute, a black void that concealed dangers and disoriented the unprepared. He secured the cabin door against the wind, double-checked their supplies, and settled in for a long night. Rex lay beside him, alert but resting, their breathing synchronized in the cold air. The fire sputtered, casting flickering shadows that danced on the walls, a fragile heartbeat against the storm's roar. Jake's mind remained focused on the challenges ahead. The Alaskan wilderness was a relentless adversary, but he was a Navy SEAL, trained, disciplined, and unyielding. With Rex by his side, he was ready to face whatever the frozen expanse would throw at them, knowing that survival depended on their bond, their skills, and their unbreakable will to endure. The storm outside showed no signs of easing, as dawn broke behind a dense curtain of swirling snow. Jake Mallory stirred from a restless sleep, the cabin's meager warmth barely staving off the deep chill that had settled into his bones. Rex was already alert, his sharp eyes scanning the frozen landscape visible through the frost-coated window. Together, they faced a grueling day ahead, where every choice could mean the difference between survival and surrender. Jake swung his legs over the rough wooden floor, muscles stiff from the cold and cramped quarters. The blizzard's fury had not abated. Gusts howled like banshees, rattling the cabin's fragile frame. Outside, the world was a swirling white chaos, a landscape stripped of landmarks and swallowed by the storm's relentless assault. They had no option but to press onward. Supplies were limited, and the cold was an invisible predator, stealing warmth and strength with each passing minute. Jake knew the dangers well. Frostbite, hypothermia, disorientation. But survival demanded endurance beyond pain and fear. He pulled on his cold weather gear, the layers heavy but essential. Insulated jacket, thermal pants, thick gloves, and a balaclava that left only his eyes exposed. Every piece was a barrier against the unforgiving elements, but even the best gear had its limits. Rex waited patiently, his keen senses already picking up nuances lost to human perception. The dog's coat, dense and weather-resistant, shimmered with frost, and his breath steamed in the frigid air. Jake reached down, attaching the harness that allowed him to communicate silently with his partner during missions. This was no ordinary trek. It was a battle of wills against a merciless environment. Stepping out into the storm was like entering a different world. The wind whipped at Jake's face, snowflakes stinging like tiny needles. Visibility was reduced to a few feet, shadows and shapes blurred and distorted. The landscape was a treacherous maze of snowdrifts and hidden ice, each step a calculated risk. Jake's boots crunched through crusted snow as he moved cautiously, eyes scanning for signs of danger or a path forward. Behind him, Rex trotted steadily, nose to the ground, tracking scents carried faintly on the wind. The dog's instincts were their compass in a world where technology had failed. No GPS signals, no radio contact, only the raw connection between man, dog, and nature. As the hours wore on, the physical toll became apparent. Jake's muscles screamed with fatigue, joints stiff and aching from the cold. His breath came in ragged gasps, each inhalation a reminder of the frigid air invading his lungs. Yet, despite the exhaustion, there was a steely determination in his gaze, a refusal to yield. The blizzard was a master of deception. Snowdrifts concealed hidden crevices and fragile ice patches, threatening to swallow the unwary. Jake's eyes caught a subtle shift in the terrain, a slight depression covered in fresh powder. He paused, probing with a trekking pole. his senses alert to the faintest hint of danger. Rex, sensing the tension, adjusted his pace, ears twitching as he scanned the invisible horizon. The bond between them was unspoken, but absolute. Jake trusted Rex's intuition. The dog's ability to detect subtle changes in the environment was often the difference between safety and disaster. Their supplies were dwindling. The emergency rations Jake carried were meant for short-term survival, not the extended ordeal the storm had imposed. Water was scarce, frozen solid in the sub-zero temperatures. Each step forward required careful rationing of energy and resources. As midday approached, the storm's intensity fluctuated, granting brief moments of relative calm before plunging them back into the tempest. During these intervals, Jake scanned the skyline, searching for landmarks, an outcropping of rocks, a distant ridge, anything to confirm their position. His compass, though battered by the storm's interference, pointed vaguely northwest, the direction of a ranger station marked on his map. Reaching that outpost was their best hope for rescue and recovery. But between them and safety lay miles of unforgiving terrain, a gauntlet of snow, ice, and bone-chilling cold. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through Jake's ankle as he stepped onto an unseen patch of ice. He stumbled, barely catching himself on a nearby tree. Gritting his teeth against the searing ache, he tested the joint, wincing as he put weight on it. The injury was serious, but not crippling. He could still move, though every step would require caution. Rex sensed the change immediately, moving closer and pressing against Jake's side. The dog's warmth was a balm against the biting cold, and his presence an unyielding source of morale. Jake adjusted the strap of the harness, signaling a brief pause. They found a sheltered spot beneath a cluster of evergreens, the dense branches offering some respite from the wind. Jake sank to the ground, pulling out a compact first aid kit. With practiced hands, he wrapped his ankle in a compression bandage, stabilizing the injury as best as he could in the harsh conditions. The storm's howl was a constant backdrop, a reminder of the peril surrounding them. Jake's mind raced through scenarios. How far they could travel, how long they could survive, what dangers yet lay ahead. Yet, amid the uncertainty, he found strength in the simple act of persevering. Rex lay beside him, alert despite the brief rest. The dog's ears twitched at every sound, the crack of ice shifting, the distant call of a raven, the whisper of wind through the branches. Their survival depended on this acute awareness, a heightened sensitivity to the environment and its hidden threats. As the afternoon waned, the temperature dropped further. The sun, a pale orb behind the swirling clouds, offered no warmth. Jake's fingers, numb despite the gloves, struggled to manage the map and compass, trying to plot a route that balanced distance with safety. Night was approaching faster than he wanted. The wilderness after dark was a realm of shadows and silence, where the cold deepened and dangers multiplied. They needed shelter, or at least a secure place to wait out the night. But options were scarce. Jake scanned the horizon once more, spotting a faint outline, a ridge that might provide some protection from the wind. With a grim nod, he signaled to Rex, rising carefully despite the ankle's protest. Step by step, they moved toward the ridge, each footfall deliberate and measured. The journey was a testament to endurance. The cold bit relentlessly. Muscles screamed. The wind threatened to push them back. Yet, the bond between man and dog was unshakable, a fusion of trust, training, and sheer willpower. Reaching the ridge, Jake found a shallow cave-like formation where snow had been blown away by the wind. It was crude but offered shelter from the storm's full force. They settled in, huddling together for warmth as the blizzard resumed its full fury outside. Jake's thoughts flickered to the unknown. How long the storm would last, whether rescue teams were searching, and what trials awaited them next. But in this moment, survival was about endurance, about pushing beyond pain and exhaustion, about trusting in the bond that had carried them through countless battles. As night descended once again, the blizzard's roar a constant presence, Jake and Rex prepared to face whatever came next. United, resilient, and determined to survive the frozen wilderness that sought to claim them. The blizzard's roar battered the ridge with unyielding ferocity, snow swirling in chaotic eddies that blurred the edges of the world. Jake Mallory crouched within the shallow cave, his breath visible in the frigid air, heart pounding against the oppressive silence between gusts. The ache in his ankle throbbed relentlessly, a sharp reminder of his vulnerability in this frozen wasteland. Time was slipping away, and the storm showed no mercy. The shelter was meager, just enough to block the worst of the wind. But Jake knew it wouldn't hold against the night's full assault for long. His survival instincts, honed through years of Navy SEAL training, screamed that waiting was not an option. The cold was an invisible predator, gnawing at his body, sapping strength and will. If he remained here, hypothermia would claim him before rescue could arrive. Rex lay close, his warm body a reassuring anchor in the swirling cold. The dog's ears twitched, eyes scanning the snow-laden horizon with unwavering vigilance. Jake's hand found Rex's neck, fingers threading through thick fur in a silent pact of trust. Together, they had endured the worst of nature's fury. But now, a critical decision loomed. A choice between the fragile sanctuary of the ridge and the perilous journey toward help. Jake's gaze flicked to the map crumpled in his hands, the inked lines faint beneath the frost. The ranger station lay miles ahead, a beacon of hope in the unyielding expanse. To reach it, he would have to leave the shelter, brave the storm's full wrath, and navigate a landscape transformed into a treacherous nightmare by ice and snow. The thought was daunting, but the alternative, waiting to freeze, was unthinkable. Drawing a deep breath, Jake steadied himself, the cold air burning his lungs but sharpening his resolve. Each second spent hesitating was a second closer to succumbing to the wilderness. He rose slowly, testing the weight on his injured ankle. Pain flared sharply, but he forced his jaw tight, refusing to let it cripple him. Every movement was deliberate, calculated to conserve energy while minimizing risk. Rex rose as well, stepping to Jake's side, his presence a living shield against the storm's isolation. Stepping beyond the ridge's scant protection, they were engulfed once more by the blizzard's ferocity. The wind tore at their faces, snowflakes stabbing like icy needles. Visibility was reduced to a few feet, the landscape a shifting maze of white. Jake's compass, barely functional, was gripped tightly in one hand, the other clutching the harness tethering him to Rex. The dog moved confidently, nose close to the ground, picking up scents carried faintly on the ruthless wind. Rex's instincts were their guide through the frozen labyrinth, a skill born of training and survival. Jake matched his pace to the dog's steady rhythm, trusting the K9's judgment implicitly. The journey was agony. Each step was a battle against the elements and his own failing body. His muscles screamed, the ankle throbbed, and the cold seeped into his bones. Yet, the fire of determination burned in his eyes. To survive, he had to push beyond pain, beyond fear, beyond the limits of human endurance. The terrain was a brutal gauntlet. Hidden beneath the snow were treacherous ice patches, fragile snow bridges over deep crevices, and sharp rocks jagged and unforgiving. Jake's senses were heightened to every sound and movement. The crack of shifting ice, the brittle snap of a frozen branch, the distant howl of the storm. Suddenly, A misstep sent Jake tumbling forward, snow exploding around him as he hit the ground hard. Pain shot through his ankle, and for a moment, the cold threatened to steal his breath. Rex was immediately at his side, barking softly, nose pressed against Jake's face in a reassuring gesture. Jake gritted his teeth, pushing himself up with trembling hands. The fall was a stark reminder of the peril he faced. But surrender was not an option. With Rex leading, he resumed their perilous trek, each step a testament to willpower and trust. Hours blurred into an endless struggle. The storm's intensity waxed and waned, granting brief moments of eerie calm before plunging them back into whiteout conditions. Jake's mind remained laser-focused, blocking out the cold's numbing bite and the persistent ache in his ankle. As dusk approached, a faint glimmer pierced the storm's veil, a dark shape against the swirling white. Jake squinted, heart pounding. Could it be the ranger station? Hope surged, fueling his faltering strength. They pushed forward, the distance closing painfully slow, but steadily. The shape grew clearer, a small outbuilding nestled against a copse of trees, its weathered roof barely visible beneath the snow. Relief flooded Jake's chest, mingling with exhaustion and pain. Reaching the structure, Jake fumbled with the door, numb fingers betraying his efforts. Finally, it yielded with a creak, revealing a modest interior. Inside, the air was stale but sheltering, a haven from the storm's merciless grip. Jake collapsed onto the rough wooden floor, pain radiating from his ankle, but overshadowed by an overwhelming sense of survival. Rex settled beside him, alert but relaxed in the warmth of shelter. The ranger station was abandoned, its radio equipment silent but intact. Jake scavenged the room, pulling out a handheld transmitter. His fingers, stiff and fumbling, managed to activate it, sending out a distress signal into the static-filled airwaves. Minutes stretched into agonizingly long silence before a crackling voice finally responded. The connection was weak, the message garbled, but it was enough. Enough to let rescue know their location and plight. Jake sagged against the wall, exhaustion and relief mingling in his weary eyes. The storm raged outside, but inside this fragile refuge, hope flickered anew. Rex rested his head on Jake's knee, a silent guardian in the wilderness. Their ordeal was far from over, but the critical step had been taken. The decision to leave the safety of the ridge, to brave the storm, had brought them to the brink of salvation. Jake closed his eyes briefly, gathering strength for the challenges that still awaited. The frozen wilderness was merciless, but so was their resolve. Together, man and dog had faced the storm's peak and emerged on the other side, scarred, battered, but unbroken. The biting cold clung to Jake Mallory like a relentless shadow as night descended over the abandoned ranger station. The storm outside had not eased. Instead, it seemed to gather strength, howling through the broken windows and rattling the fragile wooden frame. Inside, the air was stale and frigid, the meager warmth from a small kerosene heater barely pushing back the creeping chill. Jake sat hunched against the wall, his ankle throbbing fiercely, each pulse a sharp reminder of the injury that threatened to halt their desperate fight for survival. Rex lay curled at Jake's feet, his breath steady but eyes alert, ears twitching at every creak and groan of the battered shelter. The dog's presence was a lifeline, a constant source of comfort in the oppressive silence that filled the room. Despite the exhaustion etched into Jake's face, his mind remained razor-sharp, attuned to the dangers lurking both outside and within. The first complication had come swiftly. The kerosene heater sputtered and died, its fuel reserve exhausted far sooner than anticipated. The temperature inside plummeted rapidly, icy fingers creeping along Jake's exposed skin. He pulled his jacket tighter, teeth clenched against the cold that threatened to sap his strength and cloud his thoughts. Communication devices, their last tether to the outside world, were faltering. The handheld transmitter's battery was dangerously low, and static crackled through the tiny speaker whenever Jake attempted contact. The storm's interference was relentless, cutting off any hope of timely rescue. Isolation pressed down on him like a physical weight, amplifying the solitude of the frozen wilderness. Water was another critical concern. The small supply Jake had carried was frozen solid, and attempts to melt snow over a meager flame were slow and inefficient. Dehydration began to gnaw at him, a stealthy adversary that could prove as deadly as the cold. Each sip was rationed carefully, a precious resource in a battle against nature's cruelty. Jake's ankle, wrapped tightly in a makeshift bandage, throbbed with mounting intensity. The injury, sustained days earlier on hidden ice, had worsened. Swelling and stiffness were creeping in, threatening to immobilize him. Movement was a calculated risk, each step a gamble fraught with pain and potential disaster. Yet, staying put indefinitely was not an option. Starvation and frostbite were silent killers waiting patiently. Nightfall brought with it a deeper darkness, the kind that seemed to swallow sound and light alike. Jake's eyes adjusted to the dimness, scanning the room for anything overlooked. The ranger station was sparse, a relic of human presence in an unforgiving land. Maps hung crooked on the walls, faded and brittle. A dusty supply cabinet held remnants of emergency gear, but most were expired or unusable. Despite the bleakness, Jake's training instilled a relentless resourcefulness. He scavenged what he could: an old wool blanket, a half-used box of matches, a battered flashlight with weak batteries. Each item was a small victory, a thread of hope woven into the fabric of survival. Rex growled softly, alerting Jake to movement outside the window. The storm's fury masked sounds, but the dog's instincts were honed to detect the faintest anomaly. Jake's heart quickened as he peered through the frost-covered glass, spotting the faint outline of a figure trudging through the snow. Rescue? Or another test of endurance? He grabbed the transmitter, voice hoarse but urgent. "This is Mallory. I see someone outside." "Repeat, I see someone." Static drowned out the rest. The device sputtered and went silent. Panic flickered, but Jake swallowed it down, refusing to let despair take hold. Hours dragged on, the storm's relentless assault a backdrop to the slow erosion of strength. Jake's thoughts oscillated between hope and dread. He reflected on the harsh lessons of the wilderness, the fine line between courage and recklessness, the necessity of patience and the will to endure. As dawn threatened the horizon, Jake prepared to make a critical decision. The storm's wrath showed no sign of abating, and waiting for rescue might mean certain death. He assessed his supplies, the injury, and the unyielding cold. Rex, sensing the tension, nudged his hand, a silent plea to keep moving. With grim determination, Jake began to plan their next move. The ranger station was a temporary refuge, but survival demanded action. He would need to navigate the frozen expanse once more, relying on every ounce of training, every instinct honed through years of service. The challenges ahead were daunting. Nightfall's shadow still lingered, and the cold was a merciless adversary. But Jake and Rex were bound by a partnership forged in adversity, a bond that transcended pain and fear. With renewed resolve, Jake prepared to face the brutal wilderness once again, knowing that survival would depend on their courage, resilience, and unbreakable trust. The first pale light of dawn seeped through frost-laced windows, casting a muted glow across the cramped interior of the abandoned ranger station. Jake Mallory stirred quietly, muscles stiff and joints aching from a restless night. Outside, the storm had lessened, its once thunderous roar reduced to a distant whisper beneath a heavy blanket of snow. Yet the cold remained an unyielding adversary, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. Rex was already awake, his keen nose pressed against the cracked window pane, nostrils flaring as he caught the faintest trace of something unusual on the wind. Jake followed his companion's gaze, eyes narrowing against the pale light. There was a scent, a faint, elusive hint carried on the breeze, that stirred a flicker of hope in the frozen wilderness. The dog's body tensed, muscles coiled like a spring ready to snap, ears swiveling independently to pick up the slightest sound. For Jake, this silent signal was more than instinct. It was a lifeline. Rex's extraordinary tracking abilities had saved them before, a compass in the blinding white that technology could no longer guide. Jake rose slowly, testing the battered ankle that throbbed with every movement. Pain shot through it, sharp and insistent, but he pushed it aside. Survival demanded focus and action. He grabbed his weather-beaten pack, checking the remaining supplies with a soldier's precision: emergency rations, a half-frozen water bottle, a compass still flickering weakly with static interference. Outside, the landscape was transformed by the storm's overnight fury. Trees bowed beneath heavy snow, their branches creaking softly. The frozen ground sparkled under a pale sun, a deceptive beauty masking the dangers hidden beneath. Thin ice, deep drifts, and treacherous slopes. Navigation was a perilous dance, and every step required careful calculation. Jake adjusted the harness on Rex, their silent communication flowing effortlessly between man and dog. With a gentle tug, Rex responded, nose lowered to the ground, muscles rippling beneath his thick coat. The dog's senses sifted through layers of frozen air, isolating the faintest trace of a distant rescue team. The scent was faint, almost lost amid the biting cold and swirling snowflakes. But Rex was relentless. He led Jake away from the ranger station, moving with purpose despite the exhaustion etched into every sinew of his body. Jake followed, each step a battle against pain and fatigue. But the promise of rescue kindled a fire within him. The journey was grueling. Wind gusts swept across barren fields, carrying snow that stung like needles against exposed skin. Visibility fluctuated, sometimes revealing jagged rocks or frozen streams, other times swallowing the landscape in a blinding white haze. Jake's compass wavered erratically, but Rex's unerring instinct was their guide through the frozen maze. Hours passed in a blur of relentless movement. Jake's breath came in ragged gasps, each inhale a sharp sting in his battered lungs. His ankle protested with every step, swelling and stiffness threatening to halt progress. Yet, the bond between them, man and dog, was unbreakable, a symbiotic force driving them forward. As the sun climbed higher, a sudden shift in the air caught Jake's attention. Rex halted abruptly, ears perked, body rigid. The dog's nose twitched, and then, with a low growl, he led Jake toward a faint disturbance in the snow. There, partially obscured beneath a thin crust, was a set of footprints, fresh, deliberate, and unmistakably human. Jake's heart quickened. The tracks were a lifeline, a tangible clue that rescue was near. He followed cautiously, each step measured to avoid triggering hidden dangers beneath the snow. Rex moved confidently, the dog's instincts sharpening the path ahead. The footprints led to a narrow ravine where the snow was less deep and the wind's howl softened. Jake paused, scanning the area with practiced eyes. The stillness was eerie, broken only by the distant call of a raven and the subtle crunch of snow underfoot. Suddenly, a faint sound drifted through the cold air, a muffled shout carried faintly on the breeze. Jake's pulse surged as he responded with a sharp whistle. Rex barked, ears alert, and together they advanced toward the source. Emerging from the ravine, Jake spotted a figure trudging through the snow, wrapped in heavy gear but clearly human. The stranger's face was obscured by a hood, but their gait was steady, determined. Relief flooded Jake's chest, mingling with exhaustion and pain. "Over here," Jake called out, voice hoarse but urgent. The figure turned sharply, recognizing the distress. They quickened their pace, finally reaching the edge of the ravine where Jake and Rex waited. The rescuer was a park ranger, part of a search and rescue team deployed after the storm's onset. "Thank God," the ranger said breathlessly, scanning Jake's battered form and Rex's alert stance. "We thought you might not have made it." Jake nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "It's been a battle out here. The storm caught us off guard, but Rex kept me alive." The ranger smiled, kneeling to offer Rex a reassuring pat. "You two are a remarkable team." With the rescue team's arrival, a fragile thread of hope was woven into the harsh tapestry of the wilderness. Jake's ordeal was far from over, but the path to safety was now illuminated by human kindness and expertise. As the search party prepared to move back toward civilization, Jake took a moment to gather himself. His body ached. The cold had left its mark, but the bond with Rex, tested and tempered in the crucible of the Alaskan wilderness, remained unbroken and resolute. Together, they had faced the unthinkable, navigating a frozen world where survival was uncertain. Now, guided by the scent of rescue and the promise of warmth, they would begin the journey home. The ranger's vehicle crunched over the thick snow as it made its cautious way through the battered Alaskan wilderness, the tires carving faint tracks in the icy crust. Inside, the warmth was a stark contrast to the biting cold outside, a fragile sanctuary from the frozen world Jake Mallory had battled for days. His battered ankle rested on a makeshift cushion, every throb a vivid reminder of the ordeal he and Rex had endured. Yet, despite the lingering pain and exhaustion, a flicker of relief and accomplishment burned behind his tired eyes. Rex lay quietly on a blanket beside Jake's feet, his sharp ears still twitching at every sound beyond the vehicle's walls. The dog's body radiated warmth and strength, a silent guardian who had been the difference between life and death. Their partnership had been tested in the harshest conditions, and it stood stronger than ever. The radio crackled intermittently, voices exchanging coordinates and updates as the search party navigated the labyrinth of snow-covered trails. Jake listened with quiet gratitude, knowing that their survival had sparked a ripple of hope among the rescuers. The frozen wilderness had been a ruthless adversary, but now their journey toward safety was underway. As the vehicle approached the ranger station, Jake's thoughts drifted back to the storm's peak. The relentless blizzard that had stripped the world of color and sound, leaving only a blinding white void. The hours of battling frostbite and exhaustion, the silent communication with Rex as they navigated the treacherous terrain, and the unyielding will that refused to surrender. Reaching the outpost, the team was greeted by medical personnel who quickly assessed Jake's condition. The injured ankle was swollen and bruised, requiring immediate attention, but the urgent threat was frostbite and hypothermia, silent enemies that had crept dangerously close. Jake's skin was pale and numb in places, the cold's unforgiving imprint etched on his body. As medics wrapped him in thermal blankets and administered warm fluids, Jake's thoughts returned to Rex. The dog's keen senses and unwavering loyalty had been a lifeline, detecting dangers and leading the way when technology had failed. Their bond was a testament to the extraordinary capabilities of K9 teams operating in extreme environments. The medical team prepared Jake for transport to a nearby hospital where further treatment awaited. The thought of finally escaping the wilderness's grasp filled him with a cautious optimism. Yet, beneath the relief was a lingering sense of responsibility, a commitment to honor Rex's bravery and to share their story of survival. The journey to the hospital was arduous but hopeful. Jake's body ached with fatigue, but his mind was clear, focused on recovery and reflection. He knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but the ordeal had revealed something profound: the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit when paired with unwavering companionship. At the hospital, doctors worked swiftly to treat frostbite and stabilize Jake's injuries. The cold had caused tissue damage that required careful monitoring, but the prognosis was optimistic thanks to early intervention. Rex was by Jake's side, a constant source of comfort and strength as they faced rehabilitation together. News of their survival spread quickly, capturing the attention of military units and civilians alike. Jake and Rex became symbols of endurance and the remarkable partnership between a Navy SEAL and his K9. Their story was a vivid reminder of courage in the face of overwhelming odds and the power of trust in the most desperate moments. As Jake began physical therapy to regain mobility, he reflected on the lessons carved into his memory by the frozen wilderness. The harsh environment had stripped away all but the essentials: trust, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between man and dog. Together, they had faced death and emerged victorious. Rex, ever vigilant, adjusted to the hospital's rhythms with quiet dignity. The dog's presence was a balm not only to Jake, but to the staff who marveled at the loyalty and intelligence displayed. Their partnership was more than training. It was a profound connection that transcended words. In the days that followed, Jake and Rex became inseparable, a living testament to survival and hope. Their ordeal was a chapter marked by pain and hardship, but also by triumph and redemption. The frozen wilderness had tested them beyond measure, but it had failed to break their spirit. As rehabilitation progressed, Jake planned to return to duty, carrying with him the scars and strength forged in the Alaskan storm. Rex would continue to serve as his partner, their bond a beacon of resilience amid the uncertainty of the future. The story of Jake and Rex resonated far beyond the hospital walls, inspiring others to face adversity with courage and to cherish the extraordinary connections that define humanity. Their journey was a powerful narrative of survival, loyalty, and the unyielding will to endure. Together, they had conquered the unthinkable, and as they looked toward the horizon, they knew that no storm, no matter how fierce, could extinguish the light of their unwavering partnership. In the quiet stillness of the hospital room, Jake Mallory sat upright, the steady hum of medical equipment a subtle backdrop to the profound reflection settling over him. The sterile walls, once foreign and intimidating, now held a different meaning, a place of healing and redemption. Beside him, Rex rested calmly on a thick blanket, his eyes half closed but ever watchful. The bond between them had only deepened in the wake of their ordeal, a living testament to loyalty forged in the crucible of survival. Jake flexed his fingers cautiously, the tingling sensation reminding him of the frostbite's lingering grasp. Though his body bore the scars of the frozen wilderness, his spirit remained unbroken, fueled by the memories of their shared journey through the Alaskan storm. Each ache and numbness was a reminder of the price paid, but also of the resilience that had carried them through. Physical therapy sessions were grueling, pushing Jake beyond the limits of pain and fatigue. Yet, with each step regained and each movement relearned, he felt a surge of determination, a refusal to be defined by injury. The therapists marveled at his progress, often citing the extraordinary motivation inspired by Rex's unwavering presence. Rex, too, adapted to the hospital's rhythms with a quiet dignity. The dog's keen senses and disciplined training made him an invaluable companion, not only to Jake, but to the staff and patients who found comfort in his calm demeanor. Together, they became symbols of hope within the sterile environment, a reminder of courage in the face of adversity. As Jake's strength returned, so did his resolve to share their story. The ordeal in the frozen wilderness was more than a tale of survival. It was a narrative of partnership, trust, and the extraordinary capabilities of canine teams in extreme conditions. Through interviews and presentations, Jake recounted the harrowing days battling the blizzard, emphasizing the critical role Rex played in detecting dangers, navigating treacherous terrain, and providing companionship in isolation. The story resonated deeply within military circles and the broader community. It highlighted not only the physical challenges, but the emotional and psychological fortitude required to endure such trials. Jake's reflections underscored the importance of preparation, adaptability, and the unbreakable bond between handler and dog, a partnership that transcended words. Outside the hospital walls, the world took notice. Media coverage brought attention to the often overlooked sacrifices of military working dogs and their handlers. Fundraisers and support initiatives sprang up, aimed at providing better resources and training for K-9 units facing extreme environments. Jake and Rex became ambassadors for this cause, lending their voices to campaigns that honored the service and valor of these remarkable teams. Within the hospital, Jake's recovery progressed steadily. The physical scars remained, but they were accompanied by a growing sense of peace and purpose. Each day was a step toward reclaiming the life interrupted by the storm, a journey marked by perseverance and gratitude. Rex remained a constant companion, his intuitive presence a source of comfort during sleepless nights and moments of doubt. Their shared experience had forged an unbreakable connection, one that transcended the boundaries of handler and dog. Together, they navigated the challenges of healing, drawing strength from the memories of the wilderness and each other. Jake often reflected on the lessons learned amid the frozen expanse, the necessity of trust, the power of resilience, and the courage to face the unknown. These truths became guiding principles as he prepared to reintegrate into active duty, carrying with him the scars and strength born of survival. The medical team worked closely with Jake to develop a rehabilitation plan tailored to the demands of his role as a Navy SEAL. Regaining full mobility and endurance was paramount, but so was addressing the psychological impact of the ordeal. Counseling sessions provided a space to process trauma and reinforce mental resilience, essential components of recovery. Throughout this process, Rex remained by Jake's side, his silent support unwavering. The dog's presence was a reminder of the partnership that had saved them both, a bond forged in adversity and strengthened through healing. As weeks turned into months, Jake's progress was remarkable. Physical therapy milestones were celebrated with quiet determination, each achievement a testament to his resolve and the support of those around him. The road to full recovery was long, but the destination was clear. Rex, too, showed signs of recovery from the ordeal. Though his body bore no visible scars, the intensity of the storm had left subtle marks on his demeanor. With careful attention and gentle care, the dog regained his vitality, his spirit as sharp as ever. Their story continued to inspire, a beacon of hope and courage for those facing their own battles. Jake and Rex's journey was not just about survival. It was about thriving in the aftermath, about the power of partnership and the indomitable strength of the human and canine spirit. In quiet moments, Jake would gaze at Rex, gratitude filling his heart. The dog had been his protector, guide, and companion through the darkest hours, a living symbol of resilience and loyalty. Together, they had faced the unthinkable and emerged stronger, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The hospital room, once a place of vulnerability, had become a sanctuary of healing and renewal. Jake's journey was far from over, but with Rex by his side and the lessons of the frozen wilderness etched into his soul, he was prepared to meet the future with unwavering courage and hope. The hospital room was bathed in the soft glow of the late afternoon sun, filtering through frost-streaked windows that framed the quiet world outside. Jake Mallory sat beside Rex, their shoulders touching, a silent testament to the unbreakable bond forged in the heart of the Alaskan wilderness. The months of recovery had transformed them both, not only healing wounds, but deepening a partnership that transcended words. Jake's fingers absently traced the contours of Rex's thick fur, feeling the warmth and strength beneath his touch. The dog's steady breathing and relaxed posture were reassuring, a living reminder of the trials they had endured together. From the blistering cold and blinding whiteouts to the harrowing journey toward rescue, their survival had hinged on trust, determination, and an extraordinary connection. Outside, the world moved forward, snow melting into spring runoff, forests awakening from their frozen slumber, and skies clearing to reveal endless blue. Inside, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought them here, a path marked by hardship and triumph, pain and resilience. The ordeal, in the frozen wilderness, had tested every facet of their being. For Jake, it was a crucible that revealed the depths of human endurance and the critical importance of partnership. For Rex, it was a demonstration of instinct, loyalty, and courage that went beyond training. Together, they had navigated a landscape that sought to claim them, emerging not only alive, but transformed. Physical therapy had restored much of Jake's mobility, though scars remained, both visible and unseen. The cold had left its mark, but so had the strength born from survival. Mental resilience had been equally crucial, a constant battle against doubt and fear that was met with unwavering resolve. Counseling and support had helped him process the trauma, turning pain into purpose. Rex, too, had healed. The dog's keen senses and alert demeanor were intact, a testament to his vitality and spirit. Though the storm had challenged him as fiercely as it had Jake, the bond they shared was a source of comfort and strength that transcended adversity. Together, they had become symbols of endurance within their unit and beyond. Their story, shared through military briefings, media accounts, and community outreach, highlighted the extraordinary capabilities of K9 teams in extreme conditions. It underscored themes of loyalty, courage, and the power of trust in the darkest moments. Jake's thoughts often returned to the frozen expanse, the blizzard's wrath, the treacherous ice, the endless white that had threatened to erase all hope. It was a place of raw, unforgiving beauty that demanded respect and humility. Surviving it had required every ounce of training, every instinct, and every bit of courage they possessed. As he prepared to return to active duty, Jake carried with him the lessons of the wilderness, the necessity of adaptability, the importance of calm under pressure, and above all, the unbreakable bond between man and dog. Rex would remain by his side, not just as a partner in combat, but as a symbol of their shared journey through adversity. The quiet moments in the hospital room were a sanctuary, a space to reflect, to heal, and to prepare for the future. Jake knew the path ahead would hold new challenges, but with Rex's steady presence, he was ready to face them. Their partnership was a beacon of hope and strength, a testament to what could be achieved when trust and courage intertwined. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the snow-dusted landscape. Inside, Jake and Rex rested together, their bond unshaken by the trials they had faced. The frozen wilderness had tested them to their limits, but it had not broken them. They had survived the unthinkable, emerging stronger and more united than ever. Their story was one of endurance, loyalty, and the extraordinary lengths to which a man and his dog would go to survive the unforgiving forces of nature. As the light faded, Jake closed his eyes briefly, drawing strength from the steady rhythm of Rex's breathing. The journey was far from over, but together they had found not only survival, but a renewed sense of purpose, a commitment to face whatever lay ahead with courage, resilience, and the unyielding power of their bond.